Hello everyone, welcome to Whitby Guernsey Knit. It's episode 9, week 10, and it's just the beginning of the week, but I want to show you, I'm nowhere near my 11 inches, but I'm nearly at the end of my final row with this cone. So I finished this cone just about. So by the time I get to the end of this line, which I'm just about there, I won't be able to do another line. So I have knitted all that so that the whole of the front and to about here on the back with a 500 grams of this 5-ply. So it's only taken one of these so far. So hopefully now I'm going to start this next one, this next cone. I should have ample. So I'm going to pause it now, but I just thought it would be a nice milestone really. Well everyone, I have finally completed the front and the back to the shoulders. So I am now on the next stage, which is sort of, well, not sewing because I'm knitting, but knitting the shoulders together because there's no sewing up. So it says here, if I can find it. So shoulders, body is now complete. Shoulders and neck. To work first shoulder, wrong sides together. So I've ensured that I've got my wrong sides together. Wrong sides together, knit front and back together by taking one stitch from the front and one stitch from back and knitting them together, number given in chart. Then it says turn and cast off one stitch over the other. I don't know what that means. So I'll just do the first little bit. So wrong sides together, knit front and back together, taking one stitch from front and one stitch from back and knitting them together. So my number in my chart, so mine is 42, size 42, stitches 48. So I have to do 48 on this first side. So I will commence at this side because this is where I've got my wool onto my cone. So I'll start there. So I'm going to do 48. So take this elastic band off. And it did say, didn't it, check? I've lost it again. To work wrong sides together, knit one from front, one from back. Which side am I on? That side. Knit them together. So I've taken one from the front, one from the back. Yep. Knit that together. Don't know if you can see, but I am going to pause it in a minute because I'll probably go wrong. It's 2. Okay. I'm slipping off. So I'm going to put my glasses on and I'll pause it now. And okay, I understand what it means now. On 46, I've knitted 2 together all the way across, one from the front, one from the back for 46. But I have to do 48, so that's 47, 48. And then it says turn, the pattern says turn. So I turn make sure they don't come off. Turn, and then it says knit 1 stitch and cross it over onto the other one. So in effect, you're actually casting off here. So I'm going to get another needle now. So I'll be back to you in a minute. Right, I'm on my final 2 stitches. So what it meant by turn and cast off 1 stitch over the other is you just have your stitch on 1 needle, put the next stitch across, and then you, so heavy, it's pulling so much, you slip that stitch there, second stitch over the first one. It's really tight and it's pulling, so I'm just going to have to move back. So we pull, take that across, and I am left with 1 stitch, which I don't really know what to do with. So I will have to slip the last bit of wool through that and just run it in. So I will do that next, and can you see it leaves, I can show you, it leaves a really nice ridge across the top. So I've done that with that side. I'm going to slip the wool in and I'm going to do the other side, and I'll get back to you. Okay, right, so a bit of a problem here. I have done that where I had to cast 1 stitch off over the other to the end, and I just put the last loop through the I used the last bit of wool and threaded that through, so that's okay, and I'll weave that in. It looks really tight, but maybe that's okay. Now the next thing I have to do, I'll read you what it says, and I'm not really sure I'm doing it correctly. It says, to make neck gusset, rejoin yarn at neck edge and take 1 stitch from the front and 1 stitch from the back and knit together. Then turn, purl this stitch, then 1 stitch more from needle, turn, knit these 2 stitches, then 1 stitch more from needle, turn, continue in this manner, taking 1 stitch more into the gusset in each row until 12 stitches in total have been worked into the gusset. Now I started by doing that. I don't know if you can see, and I've got to, can't really see, it looks a mess, and it is a mess. It looks like this. Now that's the beginning of the gusset, but I think I've twisted it anyway, so I'm not sure that that is right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo all that and start again and see if I can get it right. But it looks as though the gusset's forming, but it's not, it just doesn't seem right. So I'll have another go and get back to you. Okay, I think I have done it. So what I ended up doing was opening, after I'd knitted the 1 stitch from the front, 1 stitch from the back together and then turned, I ended up doing exactly what I'd done before, and it still didn't look right. So took it out again, and it would have been, you know, had to be, didn't it, where I was on a twist for my rope. So that created lots of stitches lost, but I managed to get them together. I opened my work out, and that seemed the best way of actually knitting across and getting 1 stitch from the front, 1 stitch from the back. I'm not sure if it is right, but it does look, there's a couple of like little holes there which I could not get any tighter, but that happened on my gusset here as well. I'll just run some thread through that, I think, if it is right. So I've ended up getting 12 on like it said, so now I have to break my yarn, I think, and I have to go to the other side of the shoulder, to the other side of the shoulders, and take 48 stitches, knitting one stitch off the front, one stitch off the back, knitting them together. So I'll do that. I'll try and angle the camera down a little bit so you can see just a snippet of that. So I'll do that, and then I'll show you the next little bit of gusset on this side before I do the neck. So let's hope that it is right. I'll just pause for a minute and try and turn the camera down so you can see me knitting a little bit. Okay, so I don't have to break the yarn. It says I have to knit across the stitches to the next shoulder stitches. So hopefully you can see this, and I'll just knit as quickly as I can to the end. But I'm just going to stop there and pause, because that won't make it right, will it? Oh yes, yes. Will it? No, it won't make it right. I won't be able to knit front and back shoulder stitches together as for the first side, because I will then not have them on each side. They'll all be on one needle. Oh, I'm going to pause there and just pull that back out. So I've just slipped those stitches that I've knitted onto a spare needle, because thinking about it, if I knit on the third needle, I should then just have my two needles to knit the two together, one from one needle and one from another. When you don't know, when you haven't done something and it's totally different, it does take a little bit of thinking through, really. One person who messaged had suggested knitting a child's sweater, a child's Guernsey, and that would have been a super idea if I wasn't up against time, because all these little differences to when you're knitting on two needles or knitting just a normal jumper would be easier to solve and fathom out. But to me, knitting like this, I mean, technology changes, doesn't it, and things advance. This seems, this way of knitting seems more complicated than knitting on two needles, whether it's because you're not doing any sewing up, and that makes the Guernsey more hard wearing. Would be interesting to know the reasoning behind it, because I'm sure they would have knitted on two needles. I hope I can get to Whitby Museum. Actually, it's closed at the moment for winter. I think it reopens in February, but I do hope I can get there and see if they have any objects and photographs and actual Guernseys, and then I'll be able to show you and see if I can work out from those photographs or knitted Guernseys that might be there what they actually did. So anyway, I am now at the end of this row, but it is just a plain knit row, so I hope that doesn't show up on the neckline. Well, we'll have to wait and see. So I've done knitted to the end there. Then I now have to, no, that's better, that does look better there. Looks more like it should. So I'll take this elastic band off. And now knit across piece of work to next shoulder stitches, then knit one from the front and one from the back like the first side. So I shall do that now. Oh, and I've noticed that I've pulled stitches off at the other end. I'm going to have to get, don't know if you can see, they're all off. There's one gone down, but I'll sort that out after. Right, so 48. So get my front and back together. Get my spare needle, so I'll just show you a couple of those. One from the front, one stitch from the front, one stitched from the back. Try again. One stitch from the front, one stitch from the back. And pull off. One stitch from the front, one stitch from the back, knit together, pull off. So I shall continue doing that until there are 48 stitches on this needle. So I'll pause there and get back to you. Right, so I've done that, taken my 48 stitches off. So now I had to turn my work around and I have to, oh no, cotton's going. I have to slip one stitch over the other. So slip one off, slip the other off, slip that stitch over, slip off. Hope you can see. Just move slightly in a little bit. Slip, take that stitch over the other, and over there. So slip, lift the stitch over the other. What I find happens with this, I'm just going to pull this chair out so it's not in the way. What I found out is this wool. It's really coarse wool. You can actually see the fibres of the sheep in the wool, but it also splits all the time. It splits, and that's a bit of a nuisance, really. Split there. So I'm going to continue until I get to the end, and then I'll be back onto the final gusset. Well, I have managed to cast off the stitches to complete that shoulder. So both shoulders are done now, and you can see here, although it's extremely tight, I have to now do this next gusset. So I'm going to do that, but that will be at the beginning of my next vlog, because we've come to the end of another week. It's getting very late tonight, so I'm not going to do this tonight because things will go wrong. So what I think next week I will be doing is the final gusset, and then I have to put these neck stitches for the neck onto 3 needles, it says. So I will divide what stitches I've got between 3, and I think it's knit 2, purl 2, rib, but I will have a look at the instructions. So all in all, this week it's not been too bad. Front and the back. So I hope you enjoyed that. I can't say that I'm really enjoying actually doing the Guernsey. I'm finding it, because I'm such a beginner, I'm finding it tricky and not as enjoyable as I thought I would find it. I mean, it's been a challenge, and I've risen to the challenge so far. So yeah, the end of another week. We haven't been out and about. I said last week that we'd try and go out and about somewhere in Whitby and have a look at the harbour or something, but it's been so wet and windy and just a dismal week, really. So hopefully I will find some time next week and give you another little taster, really, of Whitby and its surrounding area. So thank you for watching, thank you for commenting, and see you next week.